This meeting of the Finance Committee to order, and it is being videoed. And the other,
you get yours on, okay.
okay. Tonight we're going to go over the library budget, and we have Deb Kern and Donnie Gowan, and you know the usual. We want to talk about any increases we've got or anything else you want to explain to us that's in your budget. You've put in a step increase for 2 people, and you're telling us that that's due for them. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, and then whatever COLA we come up with, you'll accept, I'm sure.
Yes. We'd be happy to accept it.
Okay.
Jane, right, okay.
If you look, our budget actually is decreased from fiscal year 20.
About $1,000.
Okay, you want to tell us how you've accomplished that?
I've accomplished that mainly because last year in fiscal year 20, we received a fairly substantial COLA, which I hadn't accounted for. And because of our municipal appropriation requirement, which if you all have this, it's on page 2.
Yes.
It's the average of 3 years plus 2.25%. So it went up quite a bit for this year because the jump was substantial between fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20. So I wanted to keep this year's budget as close to what we were required by the state for fiscal year 21.
That's right.
Okay.
And hope that it will all work out. Which is why also on this sheet you see that you have 3 different budget scenarios. The first one, there's 4. The first one is just if you give them the COLA and what we want for each line item. The next 3 are if you give us a COLA, I want to reduce our expenses because I want to keep within that minimum amount that's required for the state.
I see.
Try to make up a little because it just jumped so much last year.
Does everybody remember what she's talking about, the amount that the state? You wanted to run through it quickly.
It's right there. It's on the second page.
Okay.
Yeah.
Explains what we have to.
And I also made copies of. I made copies of our state requirements.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I made enough.
Okay.
Okay, I see what you mean.
If I look at the second page, in materials expenditure requirement, 100% compliance is $33,588. But you go to your spreadsheet here, and for materials, you only have $19,500.
We make up the difference with gift fund money, with part of our CW Mars fee often goes to the materials requirement, the part that they charge us for the electronic books and audios. And the friends buy us things like museum passes, so we're usually able to make up the difference that way.
So private donations are funding $24,000 or so of materials?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and sometimes, in the past couple of years, we've had money left over in our wage account, and so we've transferred that into our expense account, and we've been able to use that. For a long time, we used our trust funds. We haven't used them in 7 or 8 years because they're not making very much interest.
Well, you should make that known that private donations are funding $24,000 of your
And some of it,
materials.
like last year, we had a grant, a STEM grant from the state, $7,500, and we used a chunk of that for materials.
You include that in donations, then, or not?
We use that for our
Yeah.
materials, so we got that. And now the state is accepting, if we buy computers for the public to use, 10%, up to 10% of what we're required to buy for materials can be money spent on computers. For the public, not for the staff, but for the public.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. The CWMR's fees has gone, or charge or whatever it is, service, has gone up just.
Just a little bit. They do try to keep it reasonable.
Not much of an Okay. Somewhere, I saw it earlier. You put down about the Farms Library, just for the record, so it shows the town is supporting another library.
Because when we do our municipal appropriation requirement and our materials expenditure requirement, whatever you give them rolls into
Okay.
our requirement.
I talked to Gail Weiss this afternoon because I hadn't heard from her, and she said they didn't get the form this year. So, but they want the same as last year.
Which I
is-
think was 700.
Yes, it
Yeah,
was.
that's what we had.
Yeah,
So that's correct.
Right there.
right there.
She said she may go up next year $50 or $100, but for this year it's level. She'll be happy with the level funding. So that figure is correct that you have in there. Any other questions? Anybody have anything?
I have no questions.
You want this?
Sorry, that was
What was that?
that was just the requirements.
Okay, I don't need that.
Tony, you have any
No,
questions?
Bernie, you had a question?
No, I have no questions at all.
Okay. The opening of the Irving Library, will that affect the CW Mars costs or anything else here?
No, it may affect our, for a while. We do get some residents from Irving, but it won't change anything financially for us. I know it's exciting.
It's quite modern looking from the outside. I don't know what.
And it's beautiful that they made the sidewalk from the elementary school
Great.
to the
Right
new,
to it.
Yeah.
right there. So.
The farm's door, are they working on that yet? The money they get from CPA funds? Do you know if
I
anything's
don't
happening with
know.
that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think that's been started.
Okay, because they weren't talking to me, did they get in touch with you at all? Because they wanted to know what the specification had to be for that door.
They were going to talk with Laura.
Okay,
But the person that they had thought was going to do it isn't doing things anymore, so they
okay.
have to find somebody else to do it. And the last I heard, the specifications were fine. There wasn't any problem.
Jack, the question you had about the materials, we usually just do the 90% compliance. The difference of what we would have to spend to make the 100% compliance and the difference we would receive from the state isn't worth it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We would receive less than we would have to spend. And rumor has it that these percentages are going to go down next year, that we won't have to spend as much, which would be
Well, I think it's amazing that you can get that amount of money from private sources. to
I think a
something
lot of
like
people
that.
support our library here. They think that, one of the nicer libraries around, so I think it's because of the personnel that they have there, I'm sure. So,
I know, Matt and Shane are great.
yeah, they are.
No, we're very lucky.
No,
We
you
do
have-
have a lot of support.
Yeah.
And,
A lot of nice programs and
Yeah,
things
right.
like that going on, yeah.
Do a
yeah,
lot
knock on wood, we've been able to do
of,
it.
lot of good publicity too, that helps, I think, when you get that out.
And speaking of publicity,
Yes.
I would just like to remind everyone here that Senator Comerford will be at the library Saturday from 11 to noon. She's doing a tour of all the libraries in her district.
This Saturday from 11 to 12 at the Northfield Library,
Yes,
Senator Comerford
yes.
will be here.
Yep.
Good time to announce it. Okay. John, you want to tell us anything about Deb?
I just don't want her to defect to the New Irving Library.
Okay.
Closer to home.
My job is to
Oh,
keep
that's
an
right
eye
too, we won't
on
let
her,
her.
keep her happy.
Okay,
He does a good job.
okay. very
I
good.
found my library card number today. That's pretty good. That was,
Oh.
she helped me get that.
Oh, good.
14 digits.
Wow. All right. I think
Yeah,
we're all
good.
set then. Thank
Okay.
you for coming in.
Thank you.
Oh, thank
And-
you.
Thanks for doing it on Tuesday night.
Okay, that's what I was going to mention.
Yeah, I love it.
A work night.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hello.
And Andrea notified me earlier that Melissa won't be here tonight. She went home.
sick.
Yeah, okay. So I'll reschedule her for some other time. So I guess assessors will be next. Beth wants to, well, I do want to hand out, here. Jack prepared some information on,
Well, I didn't prepare it. I had it from research I had done on running,
I think, haven't you given us this? I thought we had this a couple, 2 years ago.
maybe a couple of years ago.
one for each of you.
I don't know.
Actually, that's only
You were
part,
able-
part of it.
You got,
See, yeah, that's the back part, so this doesn't, this is supposed to be another column coming.
you were, see, some weren't able to print it.
Yeah, well, it's
You
supposed to go
did.
like this.
And Beth, you don't have it.
No.
So, Jack, you want to give her one? This is, you need another one. Well, maybe Bernie, you were the only one that didn't put
You
with.
want one?
Do you need one? Yes, I got half of it. Or you got a full one?
I don't know.
There was
There's
a-
a copy.
That's a
That's
full
it.
one.
Oh, okay.
That's the full one. That's
There's
what
a
I,
copy machine right
Do you want one? I've got more
Maybe she
here.
could make copies.
that would help because, like you said, I wasn't able to open it up.
Oh,
to,
okay.
print it.
No, it's a state spreadsheet for you.
Makes me have to squint.
Andrea, thank you. I appreciate it.
Andrea, can you make a copy for everyone of that? Because-
Oh yeah, it's kind of little. I printed it this way.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, I can make one.
Thank you.
This might be a little easier to read.
Thank you. That's good.
Great, thanks.
Shall we let Beth do that first and then you explain about this, Jack?
Yeah.
Which,
I mean,
which
it's
sequence
nothing-
would you prefer?
Oh.
Let her go.
That-
Okay, all right, Beth. You go ahead and you know the routine that I didn't quite understand what you've got here about.
Okay.
Wages.
Okay. So the assessor's salary, I just left that alone.
Yeah.
The clerk's salary, what I essentially am asking for is 100 hours additionally for the year. Because the way it's been kind of calculated out is the salary just keeps riding on a COLA every year, or the step. And then that kind of gives me what my hours are. So what I'm finding is happening is, because my job is cyclical and there's different seasons where I'm finding myself working a lot more hours than other times of the year, is my salary breaks it down to it's not salary, it's my wages. I'm not a salary person, but like 31.56 something hours. So there's some weeks where I work 35 hours, there's some weeks where I might only need to do the actual posted time of 26 hours. So it fluctuates, and at the end of the fiscal year what happens is I'm running out of hours, and so either I just don't work, or I did work a few hours, just don't get paid for it. But so what I'm asking is just to do the 100 hours, and then hopefully that will balance out anything.
So
I'm not asking for a raise, I'm just asking for
compensation for
more
100
hours.
more hours.
And if I don't use those hours, it
Go
just
back.
goes back. Because like
Okay.
I said, I'm not salary, I'm
No.
hourly. So.
Do the other assessors, do they know about it? And what?
Oh yeah, no, we did this together.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this is
All right.
yes.
Slide one in there.
I didn't watch. Okay.
No.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay, and then whatever, I don't know if you're entitled to a step this time or whatever COLA there
Yeah, I
is.
don't know
Okay,
about that.
that's fine.
And then my property inspector, he went up $300 for his cost.
Okay,
And then the
Yeah.
only expense line item that I went up just $175 was for postage.
the others are looking for increases in postage, I noticed, so.
Yep. And then I had just noted on the bottom, I think, do you have it about the article? I'm not sure if it was a note that I put for myself.
No,
So I didn't need any extra funding for the first light appraisal because we had done that at the special town meeting, so
Mhm.
that covers.
okay. Is there anything else? You have any other article, you mean?
It's on the bottom of her sheet.
Okay,
It is on there.
it is on there, okay.
Yeah.
Can't quite see it.
Yep.
Records preservation, yeah. Right.
So
I see, okay.
that's all I have.
And so that, where are the records now? You're talking about
Records.
Then,
She just made note that she still had that open article for the appraisal. That's all she put on her.
Yeah, it was just a note. It's actually not for
Oh,
the assessor's records.
Oh, okay.
It's just a note saying I have the 35,000.
oh, I see what you're saying.
Sorry.
Okay, because it's kind of faint on my paper. I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Is there, now Jack, why don't you, well, do we have any questions of Beth on the budget itself?
The 35,000, is that, do we still go in with Irving on consultant costs?
So yes, but it's going a different way. In order to have full rights to the appraisal, we have to go in and be equal users, whereas in the past we were not. Irving
Right.
was purchasing it and then we were just writing on it. And DOR said, no, can't do that anymore. We actually have to be an intended user. So if we were to go by ourselves, the cost would be between 35 to 65. That's where the appraisal estimates are coming in. If we were to go in with Irving, it would be half that. So
One of the things this table is interesting, it showed that the Eversource project is valued, by looking at the personal property line items, I would say $50 to $60 million.
For fiscal 20,
Well, in general, since it started.
no, we have it at 85.
85 million?
Mhm.
So does that get reviewed by a consultant?
That was part of the tax agreement. So what will happen is with our appraisal, because our tax agreement is gonna.
No, not Eversource, the
Oh,
transmission.
Eversource, I'm sorry.
It looks like all that work was valued, if you look at the personal property line, in 2016, 17, it started going up.
Yes,
And I would guess it's valued at 50 to 60 million.
yes.
And I was wondering why that was in personal property and not industrial.
Commercial.
That is, the personal property is what they report. That's how it's based on their assets.
Commercial, industrial, real estate. Personal properties.
So will that depreciate over time?
Yes. Yeah, yes.
So is there,
And that's just the way that the state allows these electric companies. They report their assets and they're very limited. They have a lot of, they're allowed to, their values decrease pretty rapidly. And it's something that the assessors in all the towns are trying to fight to get it written up differently, because their values are just, they're not claiming as much value
Yeah.
to a lot of the
So
things.
this is a state ruling then that
Yeah,
allows this?
It's a state form that their Eversource is required to fill out and give to us, and that's what we base our new growth and their values on.
Quite a benefit to them, isn't it?
Yes.
so as it depreciates, that depreciated value portion of the levy limit goes on to residential, industrial, and commercial.
Hmm.
If we spend up to the levy limit, yes.
And the one thing that was different
Yeah,
for 20
guess it'd be
with
right.
personal property is we were able to get, the company that purchased Lane, we were able to get all of their personal property because they didn't file with the state in time. And so we were able to benefit from that going forward, because they are the manufacturer. It will go back to the way Lane was taxed, but, so we were able to get a little bit of new growth from that. So that went up.
Any more?
Did I see somewhere that the town negotiated a pilot with the school and the
We're working, yes, we're just waiting for them to sign off on their app.
How about Moody Center?
Yes.
That's
the
what
Moody
you-
Center.
Yep,
Both
No,
of them?
It's not the college yet.
Oh, it was the Moody Center, not the college.
correct.
I just mailed for signature the pilot agreement. It was signed by the Board of Assessors. And it's just been mailed to the Moody Center.
Yep.
Okay.
Just aside, did Irving ever settle their tax abatement case with?
No.
No. Okay.
Yep, they're
So they're the
still-
last
actually,
town.
Yeah, yep. Montague and Gill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, all right, all right, all right.
Bring us this.
Look at that. You can see. Came on. Show.
Yeah.
See the Eversource project. You can see the year we settled with First Light. So it's kind of an overview of
Yeah.
Northfield's revenues.
And, this helps explain this plus the campus values what brought our levy limit up. And so some other towns look at it and say, oh, you're not spending that. But there's a reason too. I mean,
Right.
it would fall onto our homeowners if we did.
Well, Jack's table also shows how the real estate, residential property still haven't recovered from the recession. the
Well,
Great
that
Recession.
was an amazing thing I saw is 11 years on, the total value of residential properties in Northfield has not come back. Did ever say on that?
Yeah. 5%, 10.
But they're still below 2009. So
2008 was the best.
Yeah.
Below 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah. It's just, a lot of it is just based on it all is based on the sales in the town, so.
oh, I know.
It's interesting how some houses are going way above what we have them assessed for, and other houses, like your larger houses, ones that are harder to heat, those take a longer time to sell. So you can see what areas people are looking for types of houses, what areas of town, where the market goes. So, we still haven't gotten to those values yet, but
Well,
they are
thank
rising slowly.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, thank you. Dan, you want to do
Sure,
yours
places.
tonight? This will be the town clerk's budget.
Change seats here.
Yeah,
First on it is my salary as far as doing. I have not received anything but a COLA since I've been was hired. Actually, when I was appointed and then ran for election. So I was under the assumption that I was going to be working with the same kind of steps as anybody else. But so I've been roughly here for about 6 years and have not received any kind of a step raise. I think I'm on 7. This maxes out where I can possibly go. So that's an increase of about $800 from last year. So that's basically what I'm asking for, because I have to come before Finance Committee and the taxpayers and ask for a raise. I'm a little bit different than everybody else. Some of the things that have transpired too since I started is now we have early voting not only on primaries but on all national and state elections. So that I've been doing that all myself as far as doing that. We've increased a few other things. I'm responsible now for taking in the funds for the transfer station, that sort of thing. So there's a few things that have been put on me that I haven't had to do, or my predecessor hasn't had to do. Also, some of the state regulations that I'm required to learn and take advantage of as far as doing that have changed too. So my job is evolving even more as we speak. So I thought it would be fair to ask for an increase. The other thing, if you go down the line, most of my items have stayed the
well,
same.
let back up, hold on just a minute here.
Go ahead.
The figure that you've put in, is that the step and COLA, step anyway?
It would be if I
Or
was
is
looked
it
at-
what you wanted in?
No, it would be if I was on any kind of a step program as far as doing that.
If you were
To
on
go
a
any
step?
further than this, and they'd have to revamp the job description.
Okay,
And I understand that's, they're thinking about doing that for other areas too.
yeah, because for that, we have a committee that goes over them.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Let me just see where. So, and I'm trying to keep this other supplies as far as doing that. I might want to change the heading of that because because we're doing codification, and if we have any changes in our bylaws as far as doing that, to get that codified is a cost per year. And it's up to $1,500. It could be less than that, or it could be none of that. It depends on if we have any revamping of any of our bylaws. And right now, they're working on not only the general bylaws, but also the zoning bylaws, and we should be getting documentation for that in the next month or so. If you recall, there was monies, and it's not really on here as far as doing that thing. Yeah, codification, we still had in our budget around $10,000, $10,800. They just submitted another bill to me today, and then once they do that, they're right now editing the codes as far as doing it, bringing up to legalese of all of the Massachusetts codes as far as doing. They found some gaps in our bylaws that they're going to fill. We've added some new language that brings us in line with what other towns are doing as far as doing that. There will be hearings coming up, and once everything is said and done, it will be voted on at our annual town meeting. And that will bring us right up to speed as far as doing that. So that's in there for $1,500. I've got it under other supplies at the moment as far as the cost of that. So. Okay,
the other categories are the purchase services, but you're looking for a separate category for the codification.
Yeah, and yes, as far as doing that, and I wasn't sure how to put that in there. It might even be a separate item by itself as far as doing it. Other purchases, I'm pretty good right now as far as any kind of voting machines. I was able, I don't know if I explained it last year, I was able to purchase a $6,000 extra voting machine for $2,000. I was able to do that in my budget. So.
Okay. And this dues and memberships is going up 100.
Yeah, dues and membership. Basically, I'm the state dues, the local dues, and then the regional dues are getting a little bit more expensive. Nothing goes down, unfortunately, as far as doing that. It allows me to get the publications I need from different organizations and try to keep up to speed with what's happening, not only in our state, but in states around us, because we do border some of the other states. Not that it affects us, but I'd just like to know what's going on.
Okay. And then you're, because of elections this year, you've got to increase your wages on that?
Yes, election as far as doing that, if you look at last year's actual is $3,495, so I rounded it off to $3,500 as far as postage. I'm going to keep that the same. Purchase services, actual is...
oh, wait a minute, postage, you've got it, looks like...
Well, I went down, yes.
Yeah, down, okay.
I was able to purchase last year all the envelopes I need for at least a year. It may go back up next year, but I'm good for this year.
Okay.
I went down on election purchases as far as doing $3,500 because I have purchased things in the past I'm pretty solid with right at the moment.
Okay.
Registrars, I just kept that flat fee. The registration purchase services, I reduced that by $100. Census takers, I've used that basically. The census takers involves, everybody got their annual street list. That requires those going out twice a year. I'm getting them back now. I also try to put in there other options for dogs. It actually goes on there. I'm saving money on postage as far as doing that. And transfer stations, so they're going on. So I've gone up a few $100s on my total budget. Voting equipment, don't need any for this year, and we've talked about codification.
Okay, do you want to give a little plug for the dates on voting? And you're having early voting this year.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of things coming up right now. If anybody wants to apply for an absentee ballot, they can. The ballots are in my office, so you can apply for it. If for some reason you're not going to be available on the 3rd of March as far as doing it, the one thing you must do if you're going to vote for in the primary, you have to designate if you're not a Republican, if you're not a Democrat, if you're not a Libertarian, if you're not a Green Rainbow. If you're unenrolled, you have to declare which ballot you want. And this will be ongoing until the day before. You can actually pick one up the day before and either mail it in or bring it back personally. That would be your absentee ballot. On the 24th of February, we have 5 days of early voting. You can come into my office, vote right there in my office, and that would go into a special ballot box that will be opened up it will be actually fed through the voting machine on the day of the election, as the absentee ballots would be. Obviously, the 3rd of March is the primary. We will be opening the polls at 7 a.m. and closing at 8 p.m. So all those that need to come, that can come during that time, please come and vote for your particular party. Ongoing, we will be having a nonpartisan caucus. I'm looking at the early part of March. That would be either the week after, which would be the 10th, or the 17th, and I'm just going to get things going. Now that's the way that we set our local ballot, and what I need is 25 warm bodies in the room to be able to do that. This year it's kind of unique. This year we have a question on the ballot that would be voted on to increase the selectmen from a 3-member to a 5-member. The way that will work is there will be one opening for a 3-year term for selectmen. There'll be one opening for a 2-year term for selectmen, and one opening for a 1-year term for selectmen. And those will be on the ballot also. So you'll have a question on the ballot that says, do you want to go to a 5-person select board? If you do that, if it passes, then the people that are on the ballot will be voted on, and they will be appointed to that office. If, however, the question does not pass, then only one selectman, the 3-year term, will be the only one filled. And you'll have to specify which office or which select term you would want to run for, the 3, 2, or 5. If someone goes for the 3-year and happens to run up second, that doesn't mean you're going to get the 2-year. No, it would be specific for those particular times. And I'm going to try to keep putting this out here as much as I can. Going forward, we will have our annual town meeting, and it looks like we might have a special town meeting, hopefully before, it might be immediately before our annual town meeting, and then the town meeting after that. We have some issues that we have to take care of, and that would be on May 3rd. On May 4th is our annual town election. So those are the important things for our town. Going forward again, we get into September 1st.
5th.
Excuse me?
May 4th, May 5th.
May 4th, May 5th. Going forward, September 1st is our state primary, where we set the ballot for the state representatives. Again, there's going to be, and I don't have the days in August that I can tell you right now, but there'll also be a early voting on that election, and then going into the November election. As far as doing that, I believe they'll go back to what it was. It's 11 days of early voting. So, and I'll try to keep people informed of that, either via our website or via the newspaper. Any questions?
Yeah. Back up to the primary. When you said the unenrolled will have to designate which ballot they're
Correct.
asking for, people will be concerned about what happens after they vote. Do they go back to being unenrolled?
If you're unenrolled now, and you when you go into the voting booth or voting, and you ask for, say, a Democrat or a Republican, as far as doing that, you are not considered a Republican or a Democrat. You will go back to the unenrolled. And if for some reason if you remember years ago, it was the United Independent Party, that is still out there as far as doing that. If you were enrolled in that, you were actually considered unenrolled. As far as they're concerned, you can only take one of those 4 ballots. However, if you are a libertarian, that's the only one you can get. In primaries only.
So there's no action needed by the person,
None.
the unenrolled person that takes a ballot?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
that's what people are,
Yeah, unenroll, basically, everybody likens that to being an independent. All it
Yeah.
means is you're not affiliated with any of the recognized parties. And right now, there's only 4 recognized parties in the state of Massachusetts.
okay. All right, any questions from anybody? Thank you. And I've got down here consideration of potential articles for town meeting, and one I would like Jack to speak about, and that's the business park group that you've spoken to the select board about having an article, and I think they are in support of it. Am I right?
Yeah, we met with I'm a member of the business park committee, not as a finance committee member, but as
Right.
independent member. We met with the select board last week and requested that they support and submit an article for $5,000 for technical services to move in that direction. The $5,000 would be used if additional technical services are necessary. For example, say there's some property that looks good, but you want to make sure there's no wetlands, to have a wetlands assessment done of the property. Or if a property looks good, but it is in the floodplain, do we want to determine if and how much of it's in the floodplain? Would we need a little topographic survey to document the elevation is above the floodplain? Map preparation for grant submittals, a variety of stuff. If we don't need those additional technical services, the money won't be spent.
You're moving right along with this committee then, which is good.
Well, not as fast as we'd like, but we're trying to keep things moving. We've been meeting over the past year, we've missed 2 grant deadlines that we did not know about. We've met with the COG twice. And we think there's some promise. Basically, we don't have any committee in town that's trying to put forth economic development or sources of additional revenue. And I think all our committee members feel that's an important aspect moving forward, to create some jobs in town, add some revenue sources that are not dependent on residents.
Seems like a good start, good in that direction then. And I think, the townspeople need to think about whether we want to conserve more open space, and if you do, where are you going to put something like a business park and that sort of thing. There's a limit, it seems like to me, as to how much you can set aside and preserve, and then you're cutting off any opportunity for new growth.
Well, it's certainly good to have open space, but
Yes.
at the same time, you're taking those parcels essentially off the tax rolls.
Yeah.
And again, putting more of a burden on the residents. So there has to be a mix.
Yes. So as I understood it, I watched the meeting of the select board, they agreed to put this article on the warrant.
That's the understanding I came away with.
Yeah. Okay. So that's why I wanted to have him presented here, so that we know now, he knows we don't make our decisions on our recommendations on budgets and articles at this point. But do you have any concerns about it that you'd like to express at this time?
I'm very supportive of Jack's, efforts and the other members that are on this committee. I think that's something we have to address. Again, we can't just keep putting the burden on the residential when we have, and also if we don't provide some type of job development here in this area, we have to provide, future opportunities for people to get well-paying jobs, which brings more demand for people to move into this community and have some growth. If we don't look at that, then we're just looking at stagnation and not much else.
You look at it, this all goes together. We're looking at Pioneer and the decrease in enrollment over the years, and I sent out the information that I had. It all goes together. There's no jobs to bring young families here, to have students in school. It's all
And just to
connected.
clarify, we're not looking at a big, huge industrial park like, say, the one in South Deerfield where Rulesaw was, and Militech, and the big buildings and
Yeah,
gigantic parking lots, but something more along, if you've ever been to the Greenfield Industrial Park,
Yeah.
there's all businesses there
Yeah.
outside of the Pepsi or Coke distributing center
yeah.
that can fit on small to medium lots.
Seems like a good way to go, I would say.
Anybody else?
Anything else? Any comment? Okay.
Well, the rest of the committee is glad to come and answer more questions if we have concerns going down through the budget process.
Well, right now, do you have any other?
I don't, as far as doing that, you guys are doing a meeting quite often, which is kind of good as far as doing that. It would be, we're kind of land poor as far as doing that. And what we do have as far as, I mean, just look at the fire station, they can't find the property either. So something like this, if you can find a viable property as far as, and come up with a smaller commercial or industrial plant, because a lot of them are going to be like tech plants. You're looking for something like tech things would come in and be something that would enhance.
Well, small manufacturing, Brian Bordner's company,
Sure.
it's not a huge thing.
Sure.
Cody Sisson still
yeah,
up on
Cody's
the
up on the
Sisson,
mountain,
and if you go through the Greenfield Industrial Park, there's a number of
There's quite a few out there. You don't really
businesses.
realize how many there are out
Right.
there as far as doing that.
Yeah.
And they're all like, these small little plants as far as doing that. They get a waste plant thing. They're making electricity or trying to make electricity out of waste products and stuff like that. So there's a lot of pretty good ideas. And if you had the property and you could have people, use it, come in as far as doing that, it would definitely help the tax base in this town.
Yeah.
Yeah, who else is on the committee besides yourself?
Well, we have a good mixture of Barry Bordner, who grew up in Northfield and owns a business, I think it's a machinery business in Winchester. We have Steve Serendensky, who's on the planning board, Town Hall Master Plan. We have John McDougall, who is, I don't know if he's on any other committee right now, but
I'm
he's
not
just
sure.
part of the Northfield Area Tourism and Business Association. And Sean Foster, who's
Oh, yeah.
grew up in
Okay.
Greenfield
Yeah.
and is a businessman in Athol, and I don't know if he's started some other locations, but it's a good mix of people.
Yeah. And I think you're kind of trying to stay away from the word industrial park, aren't you? So that
Business park.
business park, to avoid the concept of smokestacks and that sort of thing and pollution.
Yeah, again, I encourage people. The Greenfield Industrial Park is a good example because, I mean, you have like Gettin's Electric, a
Exactly.
Yeah.
small parcel, and there's a variety of those off the side roads.
Okay.
There's equipment rental there, I think, North County or
right
something.
across
the
Yeah,
street,
So there's quite a few out through there.
So you're going to get that article on the warrant. then?
It is, yeah.
Yes, I'm collecting warrant articles now.
Yes, that's another question. When is it open for warrant articles? What's your opening and closing date? Come on
Well,
up.
I mean, technically, it's already open, and what I thought I would do this year is, I'm sort of collecting the capital requests, and I'm sort of making that warrant article sheet just with the top part, and then I'm intending to send them back to and say, is this what you're asking for? Do I have the wording right? And please fill in the reason. So I'm kind of going to guide them through instead of sending them those blank forms that just said, here, fill out for a warrant article, then I'm already put the correct language on it. And then they can verify that that's what they want the intended language to be with the intended amount and fill in their reasoning. So as you're collecting capital requests, I'm going to turn those into warrant article language.
Yes.
And then anything else that comes to the board. At this point, I haven't brought it to them, but you'll probably expect to see I'm going to do the third article for an audit. The idea was to do 3 in a row, so that we've done one, the audit's complete. We have the money for the next audit, and then the third, we would need to get the money in for the third audit. Doing 3 in a row is a really good way to get your books straight. And even if you're going to do a borrowing, you have to have 3. So the idea is to do 3 progressive audits. So the third one of those will be coming in. So I'm collecting them up
Okay. Good.
as you get your capital requests. And
Okay.
then I'll distribute them, and then we can say, obviously, according to the timeline, I think you put it out when you sent out the, actually,
Yeah, I did
which I think works pretty well, when you sent out the timeline for the budget process.
yeah,
You had town meeting opening the warrant, so it opened, theoretically it opened last week
yeah,
and closes the 24th. So that means that anyone who wants to submit an article, they can do a number of ways. They can submit it for consideration, obviously to the select board, and ask them to put it on.
select board
They-
decides whether to put it
They
on or
can
not.
certainly just do that. Obviously, departments are submitting it via their capital requests, and those are the ones that I'm gonna kind of turn into sheets and give back to them and ask them to review. and-
You've seen the ones that, because you've
Correct,
been
and
here
I-
for
right, those that are coming in.
Cruiser
And
and
even
that.
like this one, right, those, I'll just turn those into article format
Sure.
and give them back to them. And then the third way is residents can actually submit an article for annual, they only need 10 signatures. And then it has to go on the warrant by law.
Has anybody approached you on it?
No. But in order to do that, because those are public articles, there is an open and close period for that. And the open period has started. The closing period we have right now is February 24th. So anyone who wants to submit an article with the proper signatures, they have until the end, almost the end of this month to do that. Then the warrant closes. Anything after that has to be submitted to the select board, who can continue themselves to add articles up until the day they technically sign the warrant.
Yeah.
But at that point, it's at their discretion, because the open period will have closed.
So any petition articles have to be submitted by the 24th?
They're supposed to be.
And- Okay, how do people know that if they, because is it the same every year, or is it a
It's
certain
not,
day?
so
be-
we're putting it out now. Petition articles, if they submit it after that deadline, but in a reasonable period of time, you're still supposed to consider it, because the warrant isn't printed. But they can't submit it up until, obviously, we have to close it and send it out for printing.
Sure.
So sure, should somebody submit a petition article with the proper signatures, all verified by the town clerk on February 25th, we would probably still consider it. But I'll have Sandra put something on the website tomorrow. And we'll
Because
say
somebody-
that the
somebody-
period is open and please submit your
Somebody's
articles.
called and asked me about that as far as
Yes,
doing that.
they should get it in this month.
And I
that would
explained
be
to
my
them the
best
difference
recommendation.
between a special town meeting and an annual town meeting. The number of
Yes.
signatures is
So
different.
special town meeting is completely different. They have to have a much
100.
larger threshold, because the special town meeting, essentially, when you submit an article to a special, you're calling the town meeting. And to do that, you have to have like 10% of the registered voters.
Up to a
Like,
certain point, yeah.
right. But because the annual is happening anyway, the threshold to get an article on the annual is much lower. So
Now-
we'll put together a news piece and put it on the website tomorrow. I might tinker with the 24th. I might make it the end of the month, add a few days on there. But I usually back it up from the day they have to post, from the day they have to sign, to the day we have to print. And it just takes a lot longer than people think for us to get from closing the warrant, the select board approving that, getting us all put together, getting it ready to print, getting it into print, getting it back, getting it posted within the time frame it needs to be posted. That takes a couple of months.
Some people don't realize that, they think, oh, we've got plenty of time, but there
It
is.
comes
It's
fast.
preparation of the warrant, and signatures and time.
Right.
printing.
And we have all sorts of
Posting.
deadlines in terms of posting to be legal.
Yes,
And we print them, so we have to be able to say it's done, so we can actually, and it has to, if it's a money article, you have to have time to factor that into your budget deliberations.
yes.
So you have to close it, because then when your budget comes in, you have a money article, you have to consider, are we going to try to see if we're funding that, or are we gonna take the,
Yeah.
so that can really
Last
throw
year, I
off a
felt
budget
we were kind
deliberation.
of crowded for time on it, and so hopefully, sounds like things are
Trying to be
going.
a little bit more in time this year. So I mean, I might, push that date to February 27th, because that's a Thursday. We're here till that day, and that gives a full month.
Yeah,
But generally, it should be the end of this month, which would then give you deliberations over the month of March, because you're going to have to deal with balancing the budget. And then by April, we're already into printing and posting.
one more.
So we'll get that up tomorrow. Give everybody a good month to,
Okay.
3-4 weeks
Okay.
to get that.
Now, in going back a few years, we used to have a special preceding the annual, the same night preceding the annual, and then whatever changed, or the moderator determined that any prior year's money, or which would be the current year actually, rather than could be handled in the early part of that annual town meeting, and not have to declare it a special town meeting, right?
Right.
So if there are some articles like that, they can be done at the beginning of the annual town meeting and still use this year's money.
Right, because we have to use this year's money. I mean, we can't go back to last year's money. The year's closed out. So right, we could make it part of the warrant. Some people like to do it because it's cleaner. The annual has a certain format and flow, and if you throw those in the beginning, but it's really just a question of opening and closing a special and an annual.
Because really, you don't have much time now to have a special and
And that's
go
what
through all the paperwork.
That's what we ultimately determined. At this point, it didn't make sense
No.
to do a special. I think I spoke to you about the issues with the accounting department.
Yes.
And so what's happened is I think we've got a very good team now with this fiscal year. They're straightened out a lot. They've got everything in. We're moving very far forward. The problem was closing out last year.
Yeah.
And we are working on that right now. And until we can officially do that, we can't certify free cash. Now, certain pieces are done. The balance sheet's done. There are things that are close. But until we can submit that and get free cash, you can't hold a town meeting.
That's the key to everything
You'd have to
right
take
now.
everything out of stabilization. I mean, you could, but you'd have to take it out either transfer it from a current appropriation, or you'd have to take it all out of stabilization,
Yeah.
which
We don't
nobody
wanna
really
do that.
likes to do. But you certainly don't want to hold an annual town meeting without your free cash.
Oh, no.
Because that's a huge funding source for one-time expenditures, particularly your articles.
So that's, I
And
know.
it certainly should be the money that funds things that didn't get funded last year, because that's the money that rolled over. What you didn't manage to get paid, and unfortunately, based on what happened, like I said, we've changed staff, there's a list, and it's quite lengthy. It's not necessarily a lot of money, but it's going to be, I'm hoping to do one article and just list them, because otherwise you're going to be opening and closing articles like crazy. And I think you can just do it in one article. There were a lot of things that, for whatever reason, did not get paid by June 30th, or even July 15th, which is your absolute drop dead date. And so we have quite a list of things. And the best way to pay for those is out of free cash, because that's the money that was available last year that's rolled forward.
Yeah. And it's just like, well, I'm running across some of this when I'm asking for budgets. Well, we didn't get a form this year. There's a few
Some
of
people,
those.
and I had them, so I resent them to people I had. I don't know what happened.
No, I know.
And I tried to work very hard with people because they don't have current expenditure reports since November.
No.
And that's hard to do your budget because you're halfway through the year. We'll hope to be wrapping that up and be able to give people at least this year's current expenditures from July 1st with their general fund appropriations, hopefully in the next few weeks, to get everybody caught up, because there's multiple accounts that, anyway, that's the accountant issue.
Yeah,
They're figuring it out. But in terms of closing June 30th and rolling forward articles and balances, the accounts exist. We just have to certify all that and roll it forward. It's
Now
not like the
that's
money
when you
just-
change systems too.
We changed systems, right. So the last time that we could give an accounting was the end of October because we still had it all in that system. Not convinced it was 100% correct
Yeah.
anyway. It was
Yeah.
close. But now with the new staff we have, they've been doing terrific work on getting everything in, all in the new system. They haven't had training yet, and yet they've learned to produce warrants. They're making corrections. They're paying things that were waiting, straightening out little snafus, things that were being held up.
But it's that 6
All-
months really from the time of the
December
turnover.
through June
Yeah.
is what we really need to straighten out.
And because, I'm just wondering,
strategy.
with that being a system that we're no longer using, does that make it more difficult to go back and,
It depends on
Okay.
who's available to go back and do it. And currently, we are meeting tomorrow with someone who was formerly an employee who may be willing to do that for us and who has all the knowledge of that
Yeah,
system.
okay,
So we're very hopeful
yes,
that this is all going to
Okay.
be resolved.
I hope that works out then.
So do we.
Do you think free cash will be certified by April 1?
That I certainly hope so. Yes.
The reason we did away with the special town meeting because we developed this source of funds spreadsheet.
Mhm.
So if something was coming out of free cash, even though it was an annual town meeting, you could spend that money for that
Once it's
article right away.
appropriated, it's immediately available.
Right.
Yes.
So free cash would be.
Yeah, we need it.
Yeah, you really can't do your annual town meeting without it because it really messes up how you fund your budget. There's no way. So, I'll know, hopefully after tomorrow, we'll have a timeline in place and I'll be better able at the next meeting to give you some sense.
Okay. Are there other things that you want to go over with us tonight?
No, I'm working on the budget. Hopefully in a week or two, the next ones, I'll be able to give you. I know I gave you kind of a whole packet with the whole
Yes.
thing in it, and I'm updating that as we've made
Okay.
changes. So I'm hopeful that you'll be getting pretty close to the end, so that you'll have a whole budget with pretty much all the departments. I do have for you a couple of things that came in.
Okay.
I printed out the more recent the final one that you.
Oh, yeah,
I
the
printed
EMS.
out that's the one that.
EMS has submitted
Right,
another
you
one.
had an old one, and unfortunately, that's my fault. I didn't
Thank you.
realize there were two, and I think the old one, and that's
So-
the one that you really want to be working with. I printed it this way because otherwise it's way
Let's
too
put
small
today's
to
date
read.
right on this one so we know this
Yes,
is,
should be up in the corner.
oh, is it?
So, and then I did manage to get the emergency management.
Oh, you did?
EMD. Yeah.
Ah, I noticed that
Because I
wasn't
went
with
to
the
a meeting and
fire.
he was present and I handed him the sheet and made him fill it out on the spot.
Oh, good. That's good.
But there's some question on it. You'll see a little note there. Apparently the salaries were always paid out of an account that was funded by Vermont Yankee.
Yes.
Well, we need to look into that because I'm not sure whether that account is still being funded, and if that's
Probably.
the case, those salaries are not budgeted. So,
Okay.
because
Good
they've
thought.
always been paid from that account and not as part
Yeah.
of this budget.
Yeah.
So, and there's
I
a
would-
slight increase on this one because.
Well, I wonder what happened last year.
So,
Uh,
I'm not sure that's an exploration. I only found out about this recently, so I have that note there because I'm going to look
Okay.
into it.
All right. Very good.
Make
Thank-
sure that funding source is still there, otherwise we have to find another funding source.
Okay. Thank you.
So those are the two I managed.
I don't have it with me, but I noticed a change on the ZBA budget. I don't know whether the line was, well, I might have your copy there, but whatever. She
Yes,
took it out
because
of one thing, but she's put in, and I wondered if it's a mix-up over this clerical.
are you talking about ZBA?
Yes.
Her original budget has 250. She dropped the $500
Yeah,
other purchase services, and so her budget went down.
yeah, but didn't she add in something in
She
salary?
still has her part-time wages there, and I would consider, they don't spend anywhere near that amount anymore. I
So-
know that they still like to use their assistant who has, but they've only met, I think, twice in the year that I've been here.
It all depends on what comes
Well,
up.
I think that before you did the bylaw revision, the ZBA oversaw almost all those special permits. They don't do that anymore. Now,
Okay.
all of that has been handed to the planning board through your revision. So I think the ZBA is truly now more of an appellate board. And so they're going to, from now on, meet way less frequently than they used to.
I
It's
see.
just a change in the role and the function of the ZBA. Planning board's issuing most of those special permits now. The ZBA is your appellate board. So I really talk to them because I think they really don't need $2,700 in wages. I would like to, if they'd still like to use their clerk for, the few meetings they have
Sure,
a year.
because she's experienced.
We could drop that number because we'd really like to keep that money going, in a sense, to the board's clerk.
Okay.
Which we're funding.
Will
So,
you contact her and ask?
yeah, so
about that?
I made a note on mine that I need to.
Okay, all right, that's good then.
Because I think we could be able to drop that down maybe a couple $1,000.
Yeah, yeah. I
Towards
thought-
helping to fund the other line item.
Okay, all right. All right. Well, you gave us this on the EMS. I did send out the information that we got from South County EMS.
Right.
And when Mark comes in, we'll be talking more about that, so you'll want to go over it by then.
Yeah, I just saw it today and just started reading it. It's 51 pages so far, and I didn't get into it yet.
No.
He did write a nice cover letter, though, for a couple pages to kind of do a breakdown, if you have the letter.
Yes, that the man
Yeah.
from Amherst
Yeah.
sent.
That was a very nice letter.
Yes, it was, and he did it quickly, too.
Just to give you guys a, quick breakdown.
Overlay.
Yeah.
My suggestion is read the executive summaries. That says it all.
Yeah. Okay. Next, we're going to do the minutes and reports of meetings attended. While you're here,
Yeah.
I'll just mention, in case you're interested, tonight is the public hearing on the PBRS budget. And did you see what was sent out?
Yes, I've actually put the budget, their number in this spreadsheet. You don't have I haven't printed a new one yet. I figured it'd have a few changes.
I sent it out to them.
Yeah,
and, the
their
thing
request
is,
is down for you.
the bottom line, down near the bottom, and it says no increase to the towns. However, if you look above that, you'll see where the budget has increased quite a lot.
You want me to
And
make a copy of this? This is the
that's good.
assessment.
If you've got that would be good, yeah. And the thing is, that is the difference that the towns aren't paying is made up with other sources of revenue, which are several. And my concern is whether those can be sustained or not. So we don't know what those sources would provide for another year. So I want us to have our eyes open on this budget when it says no increase to the towns, because I'm concerned for next year as to what would happen. And if you remember right, the 4 towns, when we met the last time, we told the school that we would not support any increase in the budget, and we did that deliberately. So this is good. So this is the public hearing tonight, 7 o'clock, and then there's a special school committee meeting tomorrow night to vote the budget. And then they have the regular school committee meeting next week.
This might be helpful too. This actually shows you the change in the budget. The budget's up $632,000,
Yeah,
which doesn't get reflected there.
You see, the total assessments for 2021 are 9,239,616. There's no total there, is there, for the, down at the bottom? For the current fiscal year? Yeah, oh yeah, nine,
This will give you a sense.
yes there is, nine,
Between the 2 years.
yes there is, nine, but that's not right. It's the same figure for both years.
Because they're level funding what they're assessing you, but they didn't level fund the budget. Those are two different
Okay,
things.
there's the difference, you're right.
And you can see that in the second one I handed you, because they talk about their revenue on the bottom. And the revenue, you can see, for example, they're taking 150,000 out of E&D, which is their stabilization
Yeah,
account,
right.
towards that.
Okay, so that's good. Some of these could vary, charter school reimbursement,
And
Medicare.
there's also the bond proceeds. You see
Yes.
how they're using that? That's also a one-time thing, because sometimes when you release a bond, you actually make money on the first year, because you actually get a discount because you thought you were going to have a higher interest rate. It's very technical, I don't know bonds.
Yeah.
But the very first year, sometimes you can have what you call bond proceeds, and they're using that to also offset the budget. And those are pretty speculative. I mean, they go up and down.
Tuition and fees, that can vary, you see.
And so they're using
Well, it went
$362,000
down
in
$28,000.
bond proceeds. That's a big chunk of their request,
Sure.
and may not be there next year.
And sure, you don't know what will come next year. So if you talk about funding, what they're asking for this year, where does it come from next year
Oh.
if it's not there? So that's the thing to consider in this.
The fiscal year 21 revenue budget, Andrea, on this sheet you gave us,
Yeah.
the fiscal year 21 total column and then fiscal year 21 budget column,
Yeah.
it looks like they add up at the bottom to different numbers, but the lines are all the same.
You're right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's not my math. I don't know where. I
Oh,
don't
I know it's not
I don't know
math.
where it's coming from. No, I don't
The
understand
800,000.
why they've done two different numbers. That I think the 632,000 is a real number, but how they got from the total to the budget, I don't know, because there's
Huh,
the difference.
That's a
Yeah,
good
there
point,
is.
Jack.
Right.
Okay, what
Those-
has it got? How about out in the change column? What does?
But even if you did this on a spreadsheet, those numbers couldn't be the same if they totaled by
No,
themselves.
there's-
Yeah.
I think they just,
Looks like they just copied the bottom
Line
number from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 21 total.
Right.
'Cause,
I find you have to go over their figures with a fine tooth comb.
Because it doesn't
that
match
doesn't
up.
add up. You're right, I haven't got it here.
So according to this, there's roughly, there's over $500,000 of funds that they're using this year
That are
that are iffy. Oh, well, not iffy.
Right,
May-
well, I
may
mean,
not be here
that may be
next
one,
fiscal year, yeah.
maybe one-time revenue.
Maybe one time
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
of that 632,000.
exactly. So I guess I'm saying, don't
As
think
well
just
as-
because there's no increase in our assessment this year that we shouldn't be looking to we should be looking to the future and saying, well, wait a minute, is this
Is E&D just their free cash?
Yes.
yeah,
Excess
and
it's excess and
deficiency.
deficiency. It gets certified every year. Someone should ask them actually what their total is. I don't know what their total E&D number
It's
is.
been zilch.
Well, page
For a
2
while,
of this
but I don't
thing
know.
they put together
Yeah.
says the general fund surplus of $545,000.
That might be their E&D. I'm not sure why they would call it that and not call it excess and deficiency.
Okay.
Oh, while we're on Pioneer,
They got this figure here, that you see here, 14,818, by adding the change column to it somehow. But weren't they in, if you add the change column to the 14, what was it, the column before, that comes up to that. So the money they're getting out of change, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's where they came up with that 14,818,000.
Yeah.
You see how that,
Yeah.
and I don't know how they carried that over.
Yeah, I don't either.
No?
There's going to be a capital, we always get capital, an article for capital from them, and it's going to total 28,000
Yes, we got that.
in there. Yeah, and it's for an IT switch and flooring for a room. And so we'll have a share of that. of course.
Makerspace flooring for 20,000 and an IT switch for 8,000
Okay,
is the request.
all right. And, okay, what's happened over there is that, they'll be talking about it tomorrow night. The financial officer was given permission by the superintendent to work from home, which is Florida now. And I believe he asked permission from the state to extend that for another year, and the state has denied that permission. So I think she would like to cut back rather soon on her hours and just work a few hours, and she's going to make a proposal to the school committee tomorrow night accordingly.
Didn't want to interrupt you. Just one thing to keep in
Sure.
mind when you're looking at this budget. I just looked at the October 1st enrollment numbers.
Yes,
They're down 98 students from last year in the district.
we're down how much?
98.
Down 98 in a
You
year's
have
time.
697 district students. You had 795 in 2018. Those are your October 1st
Yeah.
enrollments.
So the enrollment is continuing to drop.
It's a huge jump in 1 year.
Yes, yes.
Um,
And yet the costs increase.
And it could further drop if Warwick leaves the district too.
And your choice is down from 136 to 91, and your tuition's down from 14 to 11.
Yeah. And the concern is administrative costs and increasing as much as we'd like to see. That's my personal opinion. Okay. Any further comments on the school?
Not at this time.
I've got one more thing. We're having quarterly meetings of the 4 towns, and the next quarterly meeting would be March, the second, what do we say, the second Monday in March? Second Monday of the quarter, whatever. And I am trying to verify, because I believe that's the date that the WOG people have a meeting with the state education people in Boston.
March 9th.
Is that right? Yeah. Okay, so I would like your opinion, and Bernardston's going to do the same with their people. My personal opinion is that I'd like to see the date of our 4-town meeting changed to accommodate the Warwick people from having to go to Boston that day and then have this, whether they could get back in time or whatever for this meeting. Would you consider changing the date of the 4-town meeting accordingly?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, same.
Okay. It has to be, the rest of the in the group. But thank you. Okay. Anything further before we go to the minutes and meetings attended? Do you want to, while Andrea's here, do you want to talk about the emergency services facility?
No, I'm gone.
Okay.
Well,
Whatever.
We had a
You were
meeting,
there too. That's
I
all.
was,
we had
yeah.
a meeting January 27th.
I was.
And, you know,
Written up in today's paper.
yeah, well, written up, yeah. We were looking at other options because the current site's issues with being as small as it is and limitations on soil conditions, sewer easement, and wetlands. So we were looking at other land options or other options
It was
to
a vote to look at others.
Yeah,
They voted to discard that site as our primary choice.
yeah. Well, we were looking, one site was discarded because of wetland, the soil was wet, and there was no way we could build anything at that location. Well, it was a site that we didn't own. We looked at that. It was Andrea was involved, I think Lois too attended an issue of trying to potentially have a co-located facility with Bernardston. And I'd have to say, in all honesty, that didn't go well.
No, I honestly
Yeah.
was a little bit shocked.
So then it was brought to our attention that the fire department had a meeting and they looked at, they provided site designs for going back to the original location and putting a fire station only that would not have a police or EMS located. And they said that potentially either use the old building for fire use for administrative while building the bays for, new part of the building for the bays. And that, or potentially adding that to a new facility and potentially the police station being relocated to the old fire station. Well, the problem with that is I personally was not happy with that idea because we were pushing to have all three of them in one location. And we're not looking to have, or in this, or we use also the old fire station, but we weren't looking to have basically 2 or 3, different locations. We wanted as much of that as joined together in the same general area or in one building. And it's clear that fire prefers to have their own building. And then we had the problems again, coming up with the issues of can that building even fit on their facility? They offered that they would shrink the administrative section down from 6,000 square feet to 42 or
4,800
square feet
for their administrative offices.
Yeah, and that, and then the other issues were the
And
building.
then a 6,000 square foot building for the vehicles.
Yeah.
So they
Well,
wanted,
we were looking, the other thing is that, we were looking also if we did have the building, the old fire station become the police station, because of changing building standards that are coming from the state, that we would, even a renovated building, not only a new building, a renovated building would have to meet certain hardening requirements. They're requiring now that these buildings must be able to sustain natural disasters, as in high winds, earthquake standards, all sorts of things that these buildings have to be very rugged, which also increases the cost of the buildings. Now, and that potential estimate of the fire station alone was $8 to $9 million. And with construction costs as of last year, we're running $460 a square foot for that type of building. That's not, we don't even have the updated costs for this year. They continue to rise. The police station, or the old fire station, we want to convert it to the police, would also be an expensive proposition because they're not sure that that building meets the hardening requirements. It would have to be updated probably.
and reinforced,
Reinforced
possibly metal.
steel.
It might make it
So-
unusable.
so
It
what-
might make it unusable.
So what you're saying is regardless, it probably have to tear that building down completely, start from scratch.
Well, we didn't discuss that yet, but again, we're looking at a rough estimate of $1 million to do the current.
Just a renovation of that.
Just a renovation and to meet the standards that are being set for that type of building.
And possibly then it not really being terribly usable, because if they have to bring it to code, they have to put in metal beams and cross
Shear
beams.
walls.
He said they cut those up into these small little spaces that, in truth, become very difficult to use just by bringing them to code. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's not worth it, even if you were willing to spend the money, you end up with a not terribly usable space.
Yeah, because even the administrative areas would have to be reinforce, which would cut down the, the usable space
square footage.
and the square footage. So, and then the other thing about we had discussed was that the current fire station needs to have structural repairs to prevent further deterioration. The building was overloaded and has deteriorated.
The flooring
As I
maintenance.
told you, they are, now have a plan in place, so they cannot allow any heavy vehicles to be parked anymore on the first floor of the building that faces Main Street. We did have the town, we had approved in the town meeting concerning potential use of up to $16,000 in emergency repairs to stabilize the structure that would come out of that fund that was put forth.
There was an
design,
article for further study,
study
so
and
forth,
that.
and/or use for this.
But they're looking, the building repairs, just the concrete structural repairs could be as high as at least $30,000. And that's just to stabilize the building. That's not really making any, changes to it, just to stabilize it, to prevent it from further deteriorating. And that. The other thing we also discussed was the issue of looking at other sites, because the site is not ideal. It would lead to serious limitations, especially the station there would be no room for growth in the future. What would be there is it. There's no additional growth, that would be it. So there's 2 private sites that our committee has voted to potentially look into, investigate, and also we're looking at some groups in town that have available land to the north of us, that we would potentially talk to them to see if they would be kind enough or interested enough to help the town out, maybe
Are the sites on this side of the river or the other side of the
on
river?
this side of
Both,
the river.
all on this side of the river.
On this side of the river.
They haven't thought
Potentially-
about doing anything on the other side of the river?
Well, we were looking was the issue of co-location, potentially by a site
Okay.
near 142 and 10. That was a discussion that was potentially taught with Bernardston. That did not go well.
I was curious because I just happened, in driving around. Pioneer owns quite a bit of land over there. Do they own down to what's the road in front? That
Old
access
Bernardston Road?
Is that Old Bernardston Road?
Well,
Do they own down the Old Bernardston Road?
The other thing is, the fire department is not in favor of being on the other side of the
Really?
They're not, because they feel that this would hinder response time. They feel that this side of the river is more developed. They need a quicker response time, to example the campus and various other places. And they think that, they just feel that the response time, it would not, or they brought up the issue of if anything ever happened to access with a bridge, how we would get over there. Again, I'm not saying this is.
If I lived on the other side of the river, I'd be a little upset with that statement. But
Yeah.
that's all right.
But, and they also, the rationale was that this would also lead to a potential increase in insurance costs to.
Which I spoke to our insurance agent about.
Now, again, this is what, so I was, in all honesty, I was a little disappointed. I've been on the committee 3 years, and it seems you'd like to see some type of progress. And we haven't really, we're not any closer today to,
Well, if
the
if they've come up with some other properties to look at, that's a little bit of an opening, isn't it?
It's a little bit of an opening, but again, our options are very few.
Yeah.
If all these get shot down, or we simply can't afford to purchase them, and then you have the big problem is the cost of a facility. Anyone who thinks we're going to get one for 2, 3, or even $5 million is not going to happen. It's just not. It's going to be an expensive proposition the town's going to have to face, and the voters will have their say, and we're going to have to, I think, provide to them a serious reasoning why we have to replace the fire station and have hopefully all our emergency services in one location. Where EMS is located currently is not an ideal situation. We were brought to attention by Andrea that the structure is not in the best of shape, and it's going to be probably needing some work down the future. We're just leasing the building. The police station is located here in our basement of our town hall, which is far from ideal. So we're going to have to face, we can't put it off and put it off and put it off. We're going to have to bite the bullet one of these days, and it's not gonna be an inexpensive proposition.
I think there's been some talk in the past that maybe they should buy the building where the EMS is located, but I think you found in your committee that
The committee
there's
found
no
that,
room to expand.
It's,
We know
it's-
there's wetlands out
It's
back.
primarily wetlands.
and the wetlands start within 20 feet of the rear of
Yeah.
the building.
So you're looking at pretty much all the usable space, maybe 20 feet more. And that, you can't put the kind of facilities you're talking about.
No.
Yeah.
That didn't sound right anyway. I mean,
So I wish I had a better message, but that's the truth. That's, what we, so we're hoping to continue. We'll see what happens with looking at other sites. But, and again, the current site is not ideal. And then if we had to tear down the old fire station, that's not gonna be a cheap solution either. It's not an ideal piece of property, the grading. And the other thing is, again, what would be the cost of, tearing it down? So,
and where do you put your equipment in the meantime?
correct, where will we park,
Got some
all
expensive.
the expensive equipment that our town has and fire equipment, where would we place it? We don't have too many viable options there.
The attempt that you referred to was 2012, when there was an article that was voted down, and that was for about $8.5 million.
Correct.
And that was,
The article was not voted down.
it was
The preceding article
Yes.
was to tear down the beehive.
you're right.
That was voted down.
Okay.
So then the emergency services facility came a moot issue.
It was necessary to purchase the beehive prior because there was no
Right.
way they
You're
could
right.
see a viable
You're right.
option of building
Thank
a
you.
facility there. Because they were looking to have some of the facility go towards, heading south on Main Street. And again, because that did not happen, what land we have there is far from ideal, and it's not very spacious to build a facility. I mean, you look at the soil, as Andrea brought up, that the soil tests have not been promising for that location, and wetlands are not that far away.
Is there any
And they'd have to
communication
relocate
about
some-
that same deal again?
No, not as far as I have not, that issue has not been brought up at all.
Okay, I don't know.
I think the other issue too is, would be a question of the historic nature of that building too. They probably have some opposition to that potentially.
Well, that's what happened in 2012.
And then
Yeah.
the person who made the biggest stink is no longer there.
Plus you lose
That's
the tax
typical.
revenue from that
That's true.
building. Tax revenue, property taxes to the town. Again, I just don't see the miracle of saying we're gonna get a building inexpensively, with the construction costs and the new requirements. It's gonna be very difficult.
We try to keep costs down out of respect for all of us being taxpayers ourselves. And yet we want these services,
Correct.
and they come at a price. And we want to continue to have our own services here in town. It's going to cost money to have a facility that's for
Even
the,
if you can build it cheaper than you could then, you have to take into account when they do building costs, they do escalation 3 to 5% a year.
yeah,
So even if you could go back now and shave $1 million or $2 million off of that,
the
add
cost.
3 to 5% in the 8
Takes
years,
it up.
9 years, you're back to $8 million again,
Yeah.
just with escalation.
Yes.
And the other thing is that's the fixed cost for the structure. There's also soft costs with equipment and various other things that have to be put into that building. So again, I don't know right now, is there any grant money available? I can't answer that. I think that's an option.
Not a lot.
Andre would know better than I would.
Well, now Bernardston had the possibility of some grant money if they did certain
They have no money.
things, but then it disappeared, didn't it?
I'm not sure it ever really
It was there.
existed.
Okay.
It was sort of I think
Wish list.
well, it was more.
Was if you do this, this, and this.
No, I think the idea was that there was an idea that their legislature would put in an earmark for them, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure it was ever really brought forward enough to actually be
Yeah.
voted on.
Yeah.
I mean, I've tried to explain to them that it's very hard for our legislators to go to Boston and ask for the millions of dollars that these small towns would each need to build these structures, when the legislators out there in the much more populated district are building also structures, but they're building for communities with 20, 30, 40, 50, 80, 100, 150,000 residents. And we come in with, smaller numbers and say, could you give us an earmark for $10 million to build just for us?
Yeah.
And they're like, no. You can't, they can try, but they got to get the other legislators. They can't pass it themselves. And it's very hard. And every town wants to build and needs to build these aging structures. And that's why I tried to say, without looking at talking with other towns about combining structures, I think you have a much stronger chance of going to your legislators and saying, we're going to do a combined structure, some kind of regional facility, and they might have a better sell to actually try and get you some money in Boston because they're really pushing regionalization. But as long as every small town tries to spend 5 to 8 million themselves, I think it's hard to ask our legislators to get that support from other legislators.
Now it's
We wanted to discuss, that's why we also looked at that option to see that was reasonable if we could have a co-located. We're not talking merging the departments, but a co-located
Co-location,
facility, which would be a smart financial issue. Unfortunately, there is just no interest from some of the parties involved that they don't want to go that way. And that's the bottom line.
okay. Jack, you've been involved in that for quite some time. Any comment?
Well, the only thing I can say is the funds the voters have voted for so far is for an emergency service facility. I guess they voted for some OPM money.
Yeah.
And but that, I think that intent and how it was represented to the voters at the previous town meeting was it was going to house all three services. I think if it's just the fire department or each department gets its own facility, I think it's got to be presented to the voters again.
Yeah, because at that time it was all three or nothing.
Right.
My personal opinion is again, I don't see doing multiple facilities. And a smart thing would be a facility in which all three of our emergency services
But
were
you
located.
got to start out by finding a location
Correct.
for even one.
But even then,
We don't
you
have-
run into the thing is that you're gonna have one party may get a building, another one may have to wait another 10, 15, 20 years or longer.
That's not going to work.
That's not gonna work.
No.
I feel that in today's world, these entities must work together. It's becoming more and more important that these groups work together. This way they're more experienced to deal with if there's any major incident or to respond to. And I just don't see having, like I said, individual.
The thing
And with the population the way it is, they need to share staff. There needs to be cross-training. We don't have the population to continue to fully staff all of these departments without some co-mingling in terms of training. You can have paramedics and EMTs and firefighters that can be cross-trained. We have an aging population, and that's going to hit every one of them. Police are a little different because it's a career organization and you can start with younger staff from out of town. But when you start talking to volunteer departments, which is what we have in terms of emergency services for medical and fire, you're going to find it increasingly difficult to staff these completely separate departments without talking about some kind of shared, even if it's shared administration someday of these departments or shared cross-training, so your firefighters are EMTs and your EMTs are firefighters. You have to think about this project 10 years from now, not just the building. Who's going to be in the building?
So is there an article going on special town meeting regarding this to help get some professional consulting
I hope
analysis to move this forward?
Right now, we have not article has not been discussed or brought forward to us as of yet.
I'd like to see something on this year to move it beyond what money is there that said could be used for repairs and so forth. I'd like to see something to get this moving along.
That issue was discussed, Jack, and I haven't, like I said, in all honesty, in 3 years, it's gone one big circle. We're back to
Well,
square.
let's change that. Let's say we're gonna have something on there. You know, let's try to, but
I'll
it's gotta come through
I'll
them.
check too, because there were other emergency services building accounts that had been funded previously, because there had been hiring of an OPM, and that, I don't know what happened there, but apparently they were let go at some point. So I'm not sure all those, we did get the reports completed from Places, which was
Correct, yes.
a subcontractor of theirs. We recontracted so that we could get some site assessment work that hadn't been finished, their turning radiuses, looking at the soil, some environmental stuff. So we did get that finished. So I'm not sure what's left in that line item. I don't think it's a lot of money, but there is already a line item when I think of some funds in it. Probably not enough to hire a project manager, but it's hard to hire a project manager when you don't have a project yet.
We don't-
Well, but it sounds like
You need it.
some guidance is needed from a professional or some objective analysis that will allow someone, be it the voters or whoever, to make some sort of decision.
Well,
Or sometime in the next year, even if you're not looking at it right now, you could be looking at some things that show up in 6 months, and if you don't vote the money now, you can't
Right.
move
Yeah,
forward.
yeah.
And that would say, we do have someone who's working with the town who was previously part of that project.
Yeah,
and
he's
doing,
volunteering his services.
he's doing
yes.
some work, but, so he's a professional, and he works on other projects, so he's been able to give some advice. But you're right, we probably need to be able to say at some point, okay, we've got these few pieces, even if we just went to that person and hired them and said, scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3,
Yeah.
give us, some hard design and numbers.
Now
I
this
don't
is the
even think they're
man,
working with a real design anymore. I mean, I can't get my hands on
Well, it
it.
sounds like you need
It's been
someone to
cut
help
back.
you get the scenarios.
It's been cut back. Well, the fire
Well-
department's been very forthcoming with the scenarios. The problem is I think they need a little bit more professional review. And you do need to be able to come up with estimates, or at least what you can build where. The problem has been, that's pulled us all the way back to square one, is
Where?
the site.
Once we know where, Jack, then we can, and how much, then we can know. with-
Or even where. Then we can
Where.
hire someone to say, here's a parcel we think's big enough,
Right.
what would we put
but
on it?
somebody professional has to say that that's a suitable piece of property, don't they?
Well, you need 4 acres minimum.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
4 to 6
We
acres.
know we're looking for a 3 to 4 acre parcel. You're not putting all of that building on anything less than 3 to 4 acres. It's just not gonna happen.
I don't
So,
disagree with you about the future. We have to look ahead and see about the future as far as full-time staff, that sort of thing. But I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that the fire department has been a volunteer
no, and
department
I'm not sure you have to
for
be
many,
full-time.
many years and served the town well.
Oh, no, I don't
And
think
it
that's the
can't- I know it
case at
can't
all.
go forever, but I just,
Well, I don't know that you have to go to full-time staff. What I'm thinking is you're just going to need,
you can't,
cross-train, you're gonna need to be able to draw from a
Okay.
larger pool
yeah,
to staff, to
Yeah.
even be volunteers.
okay, okay. Right.
One of the sites you've looked at, property to the west of Route 10, where the old siren for Vermont Yankee used to be. Was that one of the sites that you looked
No,
at?
that's in Burnham.
No. He's talking down here at the end of Main
Yeah,
Street. On the end of Main Street.
Oh, there was some talk of there's a parcel there that
Across from-
they said that was part of the old landfill.
Are you talking about the big open space?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They were
That's
talking-
No.
The landfill is a
Yeah.
small piece of that large property.
Yeah.
But it has monitoring wells on it, and we looked at it for a park, and they decided it wasn't suitable, what they'd have to do to put a park on it. He said that in fact, the gentleman who was there said he had worked on a facility where they had built on an environmentally sensitive site. It had been an old landfill. And he said, you can do it, but it's very expensive because you have to put down certain kinds of barriers. You have to be, it adds a level of environmental cost.
Yeah, but that site, you could stay far enough away. The landfill is
It's way down here.
way north.
Yeah.
You can't even see it.
Yeah. But that was, like I said, we asked that we have.
Well, the zone they're monitoring is not that far down.
Well, what I'm trying to say is we tried, those are areas we're talking of 2 organizations to talk with them about available land. We're also looking at looking at 2 other parcels of private property. So that was what was agreed to at the meeting because, and again, that's just for us to go look because our options have run out. The option we looked at other property on Main Street was out and the property of the co-location site was out. So we're looking at potentially, 2 organizations speak with and 2 private properties to investigate. If we get shut down at all of them, then looks like we'll be stuck with what we got. And we'll have to do the best we can with it.
But I think the owner of that property you're talking about has publicized the fact that they have some plans for it, don't they?
Oh, you're talking about that particular open area.
That,
Yeah.
No, that's still owned by
right
NMH.
across from the campus on Main
Mhm.
Street.
That is still owned by NMH.
I thought it was owned by the Moody Center.
Yeah.
But they own those buildings, but they do not own the open land. No one wants that land.
Oh, okay. I thought they had.
Well, if
It
you could
has.
cut out the landfill,
It's,
subdivide out the landfill.
Well, the problem
they
is
won't keep it. That's their piece, that's their way to sell it. They want you to take the whole property.
Unload it.
We've had
Yes, the
some,
problem is, it sounds like with the landfill there, or that is a
I couldn't
deterrent,
recommend the town buy it without doing a full environmental on it.
because you
Once
open up
do,
the can of worms with the.
I think you're gonna, and there's no indication there's anything there. Like, you could find it's completely clean. The problem is the seller doesn't always want to agree to a full environmental in case it's not. And that becomes the catch-22.
I agree, I wouldn't take it if you're taking the landfill.
Yeah, if you have to survey the whole site, then they have to determine whether or not they think you're going to find anything. And if you're not going to find anything, then they'd be like, okay, survey. If they think you're going to find something and you're not going to then take it, and they're now going to be saddled with a test result that tells them there's something that they have to remediate, then they're not going to want to be tested. So you're stuck in this, we won't take it without a test. Well, we don't want to test it. And there may be nothing there, but unless they agree to it, I can't recommend that the town take a site that you don't know what's there. It's too risky.
Okay, thank you. Tony, your CPA committee has met since we met, have they?
Yeah, we did. We only had, sorry to say, we only had one project that we were given, which sounds good.
Oh, that was the only request you're saying?
That was the only request that we had for funds. And we have scheduled another meeting on the 19th
Okay.
to have that person come in and talk to us more about that.
Mhm.
Preliminary discussion was positive,
Good.
but
Yeah.
there were a couple of questions that were not answered by their proposal, and we want to get answers to those.
There was somebody that had, wasn't there some mention of somebody had missed the deadline or something? Didn't
Not
think of
to
it
my-
till afterwards.
Not to my knowledge, that
Okay.
this one was in on time, and I
Okay.
haven't heard of any others
Okay, that
that
were,
were there. Although, as deadlines go, they're probably,
yeah,
it is probably flexible.
I don't remember now, but it seems like somebody mentioned some. Okay, any other meetings attended that we should know about? Okay, all right, now I guess we'll get to the minutes, and that'll be it. Thank you.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes as printed.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded that we accept the minutes as printed, I think you said,
Printed or presented,
whatever.
whatever.
It's all right.
Word.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, okay. Next, if you're keeping track of what budgets, remember I said that Farms Library at 700. Next week is our next meeting, and that'll be the 11th. And we have the tech school coming in at 6 o'clock. They always have a very good presentation. It'll be the superintendent and the business manager. Board of Health will be coming in. The fire department will be coming in. And I'll see when we reschedule Melissa, the tax collector and treasurer.
I don't think I got a budget for the fire department. I mean,
Tonight.
I got their,
She just handed them out tonight.
oh, okay.
Did you get it?
Well, I'm sure I got whatever she
I
handed
think
out.
she did. Did everybody
don't
else
think
get
so.
it
I didn't get
tonight?
That was the one in your box, I think.
Oh.
Oh, was it that how I got it?
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't see it here.
you got it? You got it or
No,
no?
I did not.
You did? Okay, sorry, it was just me then, Jack.
You made a photocopy?
Sure,
Well,
that'll be good.
I did get their capital request by email.
You did get it.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I didn't get the,
All right,
Regular
that's good
budget.
then. Yeah, because I guess he had it for Andrea when I had that meeting last week. He gave her the budget and stuff. And I've communicated with him about dates, and we've settled on the next week. And there was another date that was a conflict for him, so we worked it out. So, and he did now did you get the emergency management one tonight? That was from Skip.
Yeah, that's what you
Okay.
just gave us.
Okay, and the following, then we're gonna skip 2 weeks again, and so far I have the EMS for the 25th, and I'm looking to see what else. Let's see. The only place I have the sewer budget is in that packet that Andrea gave us. I didn't get it other than that.
What
And
about the tech school? Is that still?
they always bring it with them.
Very late, okay.
Yeah. So I'd like to have the somebody representing the sewer commission come in and talk to us. So I'd like to wind it up on the 25th. If you think of others that we should see, I'm looking at the rec commission one. I think I have a question or something on that. That's come in. I don't think you have that one. I don't
I'm not sure. I
think-
I have those at home.
think that was in the Andrea, well, you might have in Andrea's packet, I'm not sure.
It is. I saw it in theirs.
Did you?
I don't know if there's any figures for it, but it was in there.
Okay, okay.
And if she upgrades it, we'll have it.
Yeah. It's handy to have a copy of it right here.
Till it breaks down. Oh yeah, I know. There's that thing that gets hidden at one little leg.
The capital plans, you should have from prior years. I've got what we had that started in 16 and runs through 24. So we need, I think Andrea's working on that. I don't know how many she has of that. Thank you.
How many pages are there?
It's 3 pages. So I have them.
Oh, you've made them, that's one packet. Here's another one.
Don't go by the page numbers because that threw me off. It's like 1,
Oh,
2,
oh.
5.
Okay, thanks, Beth. All right. All right, is there any other business before
In that case, I'd like to make the motion. We have
adjourned?
adjourned. It's been a long day. It's been a long
I
day.
second that
This is
motion.
my
Motion.
11 hours and
Yeah, motion made and
59
seconded that we adjourn, so moved, so voted, I guess.
wow.
We're done.